Even at the stadium, my vision of where I want to take this is that it's a hyper personalized journey from the second that that you buy your ticket or have your subscription to coming to the stadium. Everything's personalized from the offers that we do, from the retail side of things, from the food and beverage. We want to be able to make it seamless, and it's a really important thing because fans of today will be different to the fans in 3 to 5 years. You're going to have a lot of AI native fans. You're going to have a lot of people whose life is automated.
Welcome to Future of Fandom, the podcast where leagues, teams, and federations learn how to turn passive viewers into loyal superfans through gamification, loyalty, and next-gen engagement. Let's build what's next together.
Hi, I'm Sam Westbrook, CRO and co-founder of LiveLink. And earlier this week on the Future of Fandom, I was joined by Stuart Fenton, the man who created a role that had never existed before in English professional football, head of AI at Reading FC. Reading are a League One side with their sights set on the Premier League, and AI is central to how they plan to get there. But what Stuart is building goes way beyond the pitch. Recruitment, fan engagement, data infrastructure, commercial partnerships. It's a whole club transformation built on a budget that most top-flight clubs would spend on a single signing. It's a fascinating story, and one I think has real lessons for anyone thinking seriously about where sport is heading. Hi, Stuart. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're very happy to have you, and AI being such a trendy topic, having one of the first first employees solely focused on AI deployment inside a club is incredibly exciting. But before we get into that, can you give our audience a little introduction of who you are, your background, and especially work on AI across telecoms, finance, government? Like, let us know who Stuart is.
Look, Stuart Fenton, head of AI at Reading Football Club. My background, I've been in technology for the last 20 plus years. Started out in the telecoms industry, did that for a number of years, the likes of Vodafone, BT, EE. Took a bit of a sideways step after my telecoms career and kind of went into local government and looked at kind of economic development, economic growth. And when I was doing that, I started working with a university. When I went to that university to kind of lead on their telecoms side, I started talking to some of the AI researchers. And this was about 10, 11 years ago now. And they were just kind of blowing my mind and kind of the capability of what AI could do. I always saw it as something that would be like video games, you see AI in video games and that kind of thing. But then when they started talking about the potential and actually, look, there's a huge opportunity here, the investment that's going into it, the research is going into it. I decided to kind of like immerse myself in artificial intelligence. I had this kind of mantra that I was always the dumbest guy in the room. Any event I went to, any talk that I went to, I was always the dumbest guy there, which is great because I just absorbed all this knowledge and expertise around AI. And I just said, look, I'm going to go all in on this. And I did that. I then created my own consultancy business where I was advising people on kind of telco, AI, 5G. And when I did that, I was appointed as the AI specialist for the UK government, so working in their Department for International Trade. So I was going all around the world, meeting these amazing AI companies, talking, kind of evangelizing about AI in the UK. And then obviously COVID hit, so I was kind of doing it like we are on today on calls and that kind of thing. But it just built up this incredible network of people in the AI industry from kind of academic, industry, and government level. I then ran a tech business in the Midlands, which was kind of like a boutique AI IoT agency. And then after that, I took a little bit of a sabbatical. And then being a Reading fan, I was obviously very interested in what was happening in Reading and the takeover. And Rob Couig, the former owner of Wycombe Wanderers, took over the club. And one of his first kind of videos that he did was, welcoming the fans, talking about himself and talking about the creation of a fan council, a business council, and an AI council. Now, I didn't know why he needed that AI council, but he knew he needed it. So being on sabbatical, being a Reading fan, and being involved in the AI industry, I sent him a message on X from a faceless account saying, I'd love to learn more. I've got a few ideas on what we could potentially do. Not thinking he'd ever respond. An hour later, he responded saying, I'd love to chat. Can we have a video call tonight? And then it kind of rolled from there. A few weeks later, I'm appointed as the first head of AI in English football and Reading's head of AI. So it was a bit of a roller coaster way into football. But it's been amazing so far.
Yeah, it feels like working your whole career in the direction of something where you don't know what it is, but it was actually that tweet
Yeah.
On also
Yeah.
we're reaching out to that
It's
person for the dream job and the dream opportunity.
absolutely, yeah. It was. I kind of joked to myself. Imagine if I didn't send that message.
Yeah,
It was just literally on the back for the school run. I sent this message, and yeah, it was incredible that Rob replied, and just a kind of a testament to him as an
yeah,
owner. He's
yeah.
interesting way
He
of
puts
getting
his
into
time where
football.
his
But
yeah. He puts his time where he puts his actions where his mouth is as well. Like that's what it sounds
absolutely,
like to me, which is always exciting. Because the other thing, like right, it was said on Sky Sports, Reading's ambition is becoming the most innovative club using AI in world of football. Like,
yeah.
how do you how do you start working after that quote?
Um, Yeah, it's a big quote and it's a big statement, but it's something that we believe that we can do. And it's not all purely AI. Obviously, we use AI as one of the ways that we will get to the Premier League. But the way that we use it, I always, everyone asks me, "Are we playing Moneyball?" And I always say, "No, we play Reading Ball," and that's the difference.
Yeah,
It is the innovation on and off the pitch. It's not purely just from the recruitment, tactical, scouting side, and obviously that does play a part. But it's the commercial fan bit at the other side, the kind of the business operations side. I think I gave a talk last week, and it was talking about the unsexy gold mine, and it's the business operations side of things, which people often overlook. But actually, it's where you can, make savings, make efficiencies, and then reinvest that back into the football club, which is especially important when you have things like SCMP at League One level.
yeah, yeah. Super interesting. And so to start breaking it up, right? Because like being on the tech side of things, obviously AI is a big part of our thought process and
Yeah,
also like helping organizations with how they use AI and our functionalities with AI. There are two kind of schools. It's one the vertical journey and one the horizontal one. Do you actually start by changing the whole infrastructure and rely on a model that is chosen to be able to deploy that throughout your organization, or is it more of a vertical approach where you say, hey, key strategy, key point we want to improve is on that topic. There are products out there that are using AI, and I'm just going to start using those. Like, what is your thought process? What are you 1 year in the job?
yeah,
Uh,
9 months. So yeah,
9 months, yeah,
one season.
1 season.
Um,
So, yeah,
it's a bit of a mix depending on, I guess, on where you are, what your budgets are. The way that we've looked at it is AI is a club-wide capability. It's not a department. It's not something that sits in isolation. Because I think the danger that you can have is that it sits in IT. People see it as an IT function, and it doesn't have that kind of capability across the club. We've been very clear that we want everybody using AI. We don't want to replace anybody of AI. It's about how do we empower people, but in the right ways. So one of the things that I don't like doing is shoehorning technology on people. I think there's a real danger that you can shoehorn this very quickly onto people, and it has the wrong effect. Because a big part of AI is trust. One of the first things we did, kind of when I joined, Rob gave a kind of all staff talk, and it was
yeah,
very much about here's the strategic direction that we want to take Reading Football Club. We want to be innovative. We want to be pioneering the AI and data side. So we had this kind of cultural change. And obviously, there was a lot of things changing at the club because the nature of takeovers and the challenges that Reading has had as a football club. So it was very much about how do we create this culture change from the top downwards?
yeah,
How do we de-fear AI as well? So I think the big challenge is that there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of fear, especially in the media, about the capabilities of AI and what it will do. A lot of people kind of jump to it's going to steal my job, which is not the approach that we want to take at Reading. Um, it's very much how do we de-fear it and get people using it. So we do training across the club for all staff members, from the groundsman to the finance team to the management coaches and the exec board. What is AI? What can it do? And how can we potentially start using it just in our day-to-day life? Because once you start using it and you de-fear it a little bit, you kind of create that trust, and you create that openness that, look, I'm not the Grim Reaper coming around like getting rid of people. I'm trying to make people's lives easier. And if there's processes that don't need to be improved, let's not improve them.
yeah,
My view is that you can try and change everything, and alienate people, instead of what we want to do is keep this kind of human-centric approach at Reading. There's still a human at doing the work. There's obviously some agentic stuff that can come in that can kind of speed it up. So we kind of see it as a across the club capability.
Yeah.
But there is some quick wins that you can get. Sometimes you might need to say, actually, we have a short, sharp problem that we need to fix. Instead of building something ourselves, there is products out there that we can go and get. Some teams that are on this journey may say, actually, we have a sports science issue. We need to, use computer vision to be able to identify injuries. There is ways of doing it, and that's why every team is individual. There's not one common approach that can be taken to every team, because you have culture change that needs to happen, which takes time. You have budget restraints, which cause challenges. It's
Yeah.
not the cheapest thing in the world to do. Especially where we're kind of at the top of the hype curve at the moment. It's very difficult to go out and say, yeah, let's go and find a super cost-effective AI solution. Because you kind of get what you pay for in this world. So you need to make sure that you bring the right technology in. So there's ways of doing it depending on your club, on your level, what you're trying to achieve. And I think the key question with all of this is, what are you trying to answer? Now, everyone jumps to AI as a solution, but if you don't know what you're trying to answer, how can you bring anything in?
Yeah.
You need to kind of work backwards, work with the teams across the club to say, what are the problems that you currently have? And then look backwards, say, okay, well, how do we use technology, AI, data to be able to fix this? And that's a much better way of doing it. And actually, one of the biggest challenges that you have, and this isn't just like with football, this is with AI in general, is people jump to dashboards and AI strategies. They ignore the data side of things.
Yeah.
It's like building a house on quicksand.
Yeah.
You can get the house up, but how long it's going to stay up, who knows? If you have the strong foundations, which is kind of the data integrity side, the data auditing part, understanding what you have, and actually what data you actually need. Because that's one of the biggest things. Like, if you put bad data into an AI model, it's going to produce bad
Yeah.
answers.
Yeah.
So it's the good data in, good data out analogy.
Yeah.
And a big part of it is going on that initial journey, which is the unsexy part of AI, but it is making sure that the foundations are there, that so anything you do layer on top is
Yeah.
working with the right data sets, clean data, and actually the data that's valuable to you, because there's very easy to have death by data in this world, and AI
Yeah.
is king of that. There's a million and one data sets you can have in football, but actually there's probably only 3 or 4 that probably matter to a manager, a coach, a sports scientist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That whole infrastructure layer is a big one. But just to get back on what you were saying originally, I think it's also by having all your and especially when you look at the size of a club like Reading, right? Like, we're not talking about hundreds and hundreds of employees who
No.
should potentially feel like threatened by AI. There are a few rules, but we're talking about like over 1,000 people company. Then you might think, yeah, AI might replace some of those roles, but like having people start using AI makes them also feel how needed they are in that whole AI process, because it will never be as good as the prompting, as good of the understanding of the AI, like covering for that last 20% of the process, right? I always like to say AI brings you 80% there, but the last 20% is definitely human led.
Yeah.
There are definitely things that can't be done.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, and we have this mantra at Reading, human-centric data field.
yeah,
It is making sure the human's still there.
yeah,
We will never replace humans with AI. We'll empower them, but actually, there's a lot that the human still needs to do.
yeah,
And the more that we work with AI, the more effective we can be. But we're very keen that the human is still part of this, because there's certain things that, whilst the AI will just look at the data side, you have that human instinct, you have that human knowledge that the AI doesn't have at this moment.
yeah, yeah. And so from what you were saying, it sounds like you're operating in two ways, like how to help with processes. So I'm assuming taking easy CRM like, but I'm not talking about fan centric CRM, but like internal CRM kind of tools using AI potentially. So small software that are in the market that can help the solving problems on the everyday
Yeah.
life. But I think the other big area that you're focusing on is on the sports performance side of things, right? Like, what made you prioritize that angle? And I'll be happy to go down the route of how easy it is to deploy it with the moving pieces that are always on the technical side of things inside a club.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I guess the difference to my role to many other people's role is that I look across the whole club. So it's not just we have focused on the performance side, or we just focus on the business operations. It's focused across everything.
Okay.
And I think one of the first things that we did was obviously bring in an AI platform for our recruitment, because that was the biggest need that we had. When the club got taken over, we had 5 players under contract. So it was a case of we need to be very data driven and AI driven in terms of the recruitment,
Yeah.
and kind of couple that up with the recruitment team. So we still had that human element that we were dependent on, because the data will show, what a player looks like in League One percentile, Championship percentile, but it doesn't tell you some of the intricacies and the gut instinct that the director of recruitment or the scouting team have, how they act in certain ways. So, you can fix things somewhat quick with some patches, but you want long-term visions and how you're going to completely do it yourself. So we did that. And then obviously on the business operations side of things, we've kind of been going through everything to make sure, again, the unsexy part, the data side behind the scenes, what data are we collecting? Where are we storing it? How clean is it? How labeled is it? Kind of creating a single source of truth so we can bring everything together. Again, that's a challenge. And even on the academy side, I always talk about we have a Cat 1 Academy at Reading. The biggest challenge we have is that it's kids data and it's kids health data, which is kind of the biggest challenges obviously in AI. So making sure that we have the security there as well, so we have no data leaks or any issues like that, because reputationally you can do a lot of damage very quickly if you have any problems, and that's making sure you have the right partners on board, the right security on board, and ensuring that everything's aligned before you kind of run ahead and do the AI stuff that you want to do.
Yeah, yeah. And interesting, just to get back on the sports side of things, and we'll get to the more business side of things, because obviously as future fandom podcast, this is our core interest here and
Yeah,
for our audience. But just on the sports side of things, right? Because okay, bring an AI tool to help with the whole recruitment, etc. And somehow it feels like you're in a journey that data was in, like in the 2010, where people were scared of data. Do we need data? That is it going to replace us? How do you replace that gut instinct? All those
yeah,
kind of things that were like talked around Moneyball very extensively, right?
yeah.
And what it came out to be, in most of the people who work in data were like, it's a tool.
Mhm.
It's now a tool that is used by every coaching staff without a question. Like, there is data, and there are data driven decisions that are probably made on a per game basis.
Yeah.
Do you see AI going in that direction? Is that where you want to take it, where there are AI recommendations that come alongside that instinct and what coaches and staffs see on the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, look, we want AI for competitive advantage. We know every team's using data. We know a lot of teams are using AI in different ways. Even if they don't say it, that it's being badged and it'll be badged in that way. But we know teams are using it. We want competitive advantage on the field. If there's models that give us insight, give us tactical analysis. So the partnership we did with Score was using computer vision to be able to do tactical analysis, set piece analysis. That's where we want to get it. But we need to have trust in the models. So obviously we're working very closely with Score and as a Vision AI partner to be able to build this for us. We don't want to rush anything, because you can very quickly lose trust with the management, with the coaches, with anybody really, if these models don't work. So we make sure that everything is tested and thoroughly works before we implement it in the football side. And obviously we had a manager change, which was happens in football.
Yeah,
The new manager came in November, kind of went straight into a January transfer window. And then, we obviously had the second half of the season. So it's about allowing him to instill his culture, getting understanding of what he wants at the football club, and build everything kind of for the off season and the next season. Obviously we're going into the off season now. It's a great time that we can start implementing some of the things that we want, but also bringing the coaches and the management team along with that to say, look, here's the art of the possible. Here's what we can do with this technology, and actually working with other partners, because we obviously have Score, which is a great relationship that we have with them, but there's some really cool companies that are doing other things, and if that gives us competitive advantage on the sporting side, then we want to be seen as that team that brings this technology in.
yeah,
I've always said, I see Reading as kind of a go-to-market team for technology partners.
yeah,
If you have some innovative technologies that you want to bring in, we want Reading to be known as that AI team, So where I guess we were talking about how do we pioneer this, how do we get into the Premier League, we want to
Yeah.
be able to work with these technology partners to bring the right technology into the football club to give us a competitive advantage on the pitch. Um, because it's a very crowded market out there. Everyone's going down the data-driven route, as you mentioned. People always talk about Brentford, Brighton as the kind of the blueprint and how you get there. But the challenge is you've got every team probably in the EFL trying to take the same approach. I
Yeah.
always say, you've got this staircase of going up to the Premier League. Every team is on it. It's really crowded. We want to use AI as a lift to get above those guys.
Yeah, yeah, and that's an interesting one. Also, I'd like to finish on the learnings from the data period. It's also like going to be a tough one, right? We know that one of the things that we were talking around this recording was the fact that there's a lot of movement on the technical side of things, and one of the issues with data is that a lot of or even like on health, like injury prevention kind of tools,
Yeah.
is that all the managers come with the tool that they've used previously, and they try to bring it in inside the new club. And the moment they leave was the new product. So it's kind of that shift.
Yeah.
How are you looking to tackle that? Hey, we need to build something at an AI level, at the club level, and not at
Yeah.
this new sporting director, new head coach that comes in that wants to come in with his tools. Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, no, look, it's a challenge. As you say, people have got their tools that they've used, that they've trusted. It's about building that trust with the management team. So solutions that we develop at Reading, they're comfortable using, they see the value of using them. And it's not to say we can't use other tools. The way I look at it is every AI tool that we have is an increased capability. But it's just about how do we take the data, how do we translate all the intelligence and all the knowledge that we're building from a number of different tools, and then translate that into football terms.
Yeah,
Because the thing is, what you don't want to do is go to a manager or go to a coach or to a physio and say, here's a 30-page document of information. They don't have time to read
yeah,
30 pages. These guys, they work so hard. I think people see them at 90 minutes on the touchline on a Saturday, but they don't see the 7 till 7 they work, every other day, like on the training ground, in the pit, on the pitches, all this hard work that goes in. These guys are so busy.
yeah,
So it's how do you translate all this information so it becomes valuable and it doesn't become noise. And that's the key part, and that's probably my biggest learning coming into sport, is that it's very easy to bog people down with data, with loads of information that you think's useful. Actually, it's how do you condense that down into tangible insights for them that they can very quickly and easily kind of digest,
yeah,
and have trust in as well. And that's a big thing. Like, you can rush a product in, but if it tells you the wrong things, you're going to lose trust from the management straight away. It's like if it shows something wrong, then why would they use that tool again? So it's very much about building trust. You can do it quick or you can do it right. My owner will probably say he wants both,
yeah.
but
Well, yeah,
but for me, it's always about how do we do it right, because you
yeah,
can very quickly undo all the good work that you've done if you bring something in that's wrong.
yeah,
Yeah, it's about making sure that it's right and it's tangible and it's useful for the management team.
yeah. So leaving aside the sports performance side of things that comes with a lot of complexities, and
Yeah.
probably focusing on AI for business and fan experiences.
Yeah.
What are some of the major things where that you are working on, or where you see potential in the short term once the other priorities are covered?
Sure. So, look, fan engagement's a huge thing for us. The fans are the lifeblood of our team. I'm a fan, I'm a Reading fan as well, so I know what it's like sitting in the Select Car Leasing Stadium, and I know what it's like to be on that side of the fence. It's how do we hyper personalize things? I think this is where the fan engagement side is going. How do we personalize things for the fans? So, it's not bombarding them with tons of different newsletters or things. It's about how do we personalize every communication we have for them. I think I said the other day, we say we have 200,000 fans on a CRM system. I don't want one newsletter that goes out to them. I want 200,000 different versions of that newsletter going out to 200,000 fans. You need to feel
Yeah,
like it's personalized towards you. You're not getting bombarded every day with things. It's, everything that you're getting is valuable, it's worth you opening, and it's not seen as noise.
yeah,
Because it's very easy to like to spam stuff out. and you think, you've got all this amazing, great technology, and I get pitched stuff every single day that this is how you can engage with your fans, and they're going to absolutely love it. It's about building the trust with them and giving them what they want, and the stuff that's valuable to them, and that will change from every single fan. There's not going to be one fan that wants the same thing as the other. So it's just making sure that we get a single view of the fan. They know us, but we need to know them. And that's a big part of building the trust and kind of the fan engagement side of things.
Yeah. So interesting. So you went straight to the authenticated users ultimately, and that's interesting. And that's happy to deep dive into it. We're leaving the top of the funnel and social media and content kind of things. We're talking about the already engaged or and based in the in your CRM.
Yeah.
What was first action to be able to go down that route of like that fan engagement vision that you see? Like, what are the first things that you put in place or that you changed inside your ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the infrastructure, it's making sure that we've got the storage where we can store our fan data, making sure that it's accessible to the right people internally. Because one of the challenges that you have is that over the years, there's been different systems that have been brought in. So, you have a retail system, you have a fan, CRM, you have stadium system, all these different fragmented, siloed systems that don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
You could have one fan that has had three different email addresses that, counts as three separate fans. It's like, how do you create this single view of the fan? And that's something that we've been building behind the scenes. How do we partner with the right people to kind of create this single view?
Yeah.
Once we have that single view of the fan and we really get a true understanding of what they do, how they operate, all this type of insight, it then allows us to kind of go to the next stage. So there's been a number of things that we've brought in as a club, things like a subscription service for the fans, which will give us better insight, give them better options in how they become a fan or how they have their season ticket. It operates as kind of a subscription as opposed to kind of just a one lump sum season ticket. That will then give them access to different levels, different tiers, but it allows us to help segment the fans' information, and obviously allowing them to consent and pull out of certain things as well. Because what you don't want to do is kind of bombard people with stuff. You want them to actually understand what they're getting, and that's kind of the next evolution of where we want to take it. Obviously, when we start applying some of the AI stuff and the personalization, it's making sure that the fans can opt in, opt out, do what they want, and agree to what level of communications that they have. And once we have that trust and authenticity, then we can start working with a few of the partners that we've got potentially lined up, really personalizing the comms that we do to them, some of the offers that we're doing to them. And then even at the stadium, my vision of where I want to take this is that it's a hyper personalized journey from the second that that you buy your ticket or have your subscription to coming to the stadium. Everything's personalized. From the offers that we do, from the retail side of things, from the food and beverage, we want to be able to make it seamless. We want to be able to make it easy for the fans. I say AI should be invisible. It should be something that's a bit like connectivity, right? If your connectivity works, it's great. If it doesn't, you've got a problem. Yeah. So we want AI to be the same. And it's a really important thing because fans of today will be different to the fans in 3 to 5 years. You're going to have a lot of AI native fans. You're going to have a lot of people whose life is automated. We see the kind of the Netflix generation. Everything's on demand. It works. It's seamless. People expect that as a standard. We want that experience of being a fan to be similar. We want it to be able to that you come in, you can seamlessly connect to the Wi-Fi at the stadium. You can seamlessly get personalized offers to you. It's not an intrusive thing. It's just a standard. And that's not a quick journey to get on. It's not something that I'm going to click my fingers and say by December we're going to have that. But it is part of the journey, and it's actually engaging the fans as well. What do they want? It's easy for me to say as the head of AI that we can do this, this, and this, but actually it's engaging with the fans as well, saying, look, what do you want? How can we make this better for you? And what things are currently causing problems? And if there's a way that we can use technology to alleviate that, then it's great. It helps because it's all about the fan experience. You want to come to the SCL, you want to be having a good time, but equally you want the technology to be seamless. Because they're not there for the technology, they're there for football. And I think that's one of the things that I'm very clear on. I can bring in the most amazing AI, the amazing things, but actually they're there to watch a football game. They're football fans. As good as the technology is, they're still there to have a good time, to watch football, and hopefully get 3 points at the end of the day.
Yeah. Enhance that global experience they have at the venue, but they're still coming for the football match at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Uh, and in terms of achieving everything that you're mentioning, are you like still working with your typical tech partners that are part of the industry? Or are you looking to build stuff on your side? Or are you leveraging what people have done outside of sports? Like, are you working mostly with a tech stack super present in the sports industry? Or are you building, or are you getting technology from outside the sports industry?
All of the above. It's being candid. We positioned ourselves when I joined. I kind of said, look, we want to work with partners. We're a League One football club. The way that we can do this is not in isolation. It's about having the right partners that have the technology stacks that are available that we can bring things in and use. Actually looking at every level of that tech stack. So from the startups and scale ups who are working on really cool things to the larger tech organizations. I mean, we're quite blessed where we're located. Obviously, we're in the Thames Valley in Reading, which is kind of the tech capital of the UK outside of London. So we have the likes of Nvidia, Microsoft, Oracle, Visa on our doorstep. We're not asking these tech companies to fly in, we're asking them to walk across the road. So it's like, how do we partner with them? How do we have a different conversation with them? Because historically, people just think you're going to go and ask for like a front of shirt sponsorship. And that's not really what I'm interested in. I mean, obviously we have to make revenue, and we have a commercial team that's there to do the sponsorship side, and it's advantageous if we do have those kind of sponsors, but it's about how do we create growth partnerships with the technology businesses. But equally, how do we be a route into football for some of the smaller tech partners, so kind of the tier 2, tier 3 vendors who historically find it difficult to break into football because it's not easy. Having been on that side of the world, it's you either have to give away your technology for free, someone on the board, or you're paid in season tickets. It's not doesn't pay the bills. So it's about how can we be different as a football club? How can we be more open as a football club and say, actually, we want to work with the big tech partners, but equally, if there is smaller, agile organizations that are doing things that will help us, giving them an insight and a way into football. And then, we're quite open about what we're doing. We'll never give away the secret sauce, but we are quite open, like even doing the podcast and talking about the project that we've got here, because that's how we can leverage relationships with partners, giving them the exposure. So like when we did the deal with Score, that was covered around the world. We had Sky Sports, BBC, international press, because we were a League One football club that brought in a Vision AI partner to be able to do something different. Football is a huge amplification tool, but it's making sure that we have the right partners. And that's kind of part of my role here and kind of my expertise in the sector, to identify kind of who the right partners are, who can work in the right way, and actually how we can have commercial relationships with people moving forward. Because we, whilst we want to pioneer this, we also have to create revenue as a football club. SCMP goes from 60 to 50% next season, so we've got a 10% difference. How do we find new revenues into the club, outside of traditional sponsorship? Because that's kind of, you either look at transfer fees or sponsorship or season ticket money coming into the club as a source of revenue. But it's how do we be different, and how do we pioneer this off the pitch? My view is I feel we can do that with some of the technology partners and actually having commercial relationships with them. So that's one route. And then obviously the build model, I mean, it's something we want to do, and it's the evolution of where we will go. But it's about doing it in the right way. We haven't got 50 software engineers sitting behind the scenes waiting to do coding for us, as much as we'd love to have that. We're just, candidly, you don't have those resources at a League One level. So it's partnering with people who do have those resources, and being a strategic growth partner for them, not just a transactional partner.
And it's interesting because when I hear you, I think of like multiple angles, right? I'm thinking about the AI marketing stunts that are needed and that are, to make the noise and everything that is required around AI. There's the building the long-term infrastructure and what is the right play there. I'm just thinking like in the middle, right? Like how do you leverage the infrastructure for the mid run? Because we know that the cycles that you have inside a club is very much dictated by the results over the weekend, right? So I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, what are the things where you're actually building something on your side that is innovative and that is a value added IP that somebody else next to you doesn't have? That's what I feel must be the most challenging in your job right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, again, people think AI is a light switch that you can do it really quickly and that you can just go and develop something really super quick. And there is people that can knock things up on vibe coding on Claude, and it looks great. But bring that into a professional football environment and it fails, then you're
Yeah.
you're going to be out of a job.
But yeah.
Everything that we do is rigorously tested. We make sure that this works. And the big challenge for me, obviously, being the first head of AI, there's no blueprint in how you do this.
Yeah.
I came with a vision. I spoke to Rob about my vision, which he agreed with. But I did say this is not going to be a quick win. But I've always said we're not betting on AI. We're betting on timing. We think if we start and do this now, we will have the advantage over other people. Other teams will have head of AIs in the next few years. I mean, Brighton, City, teams across Europe have them. It's about how do we put the foundations in place now so we try and get the first mover advantage.
Yeah.
We want to be in a position where we create our own models and create different things, and we will get to that point. But it's about making sure that the foundations are there, because if we build, as I said earlier, if we build the wrong foundations or build this on quicksand, then it will not work.
Yeah.
And I will ensure that it works here. That will be my, when I came in, I said to Rob, this will work. We will build this properly. We'll do it in the right way. It's not going to be as quick as you want me to be, but it'll be right. And that's kind of the mantra that I've stuck with here.
I was going to ask, how long is your tentative roadmap? Your realistic tentative roadmap, and also like what is coming in the way because of the weekly challenges of just being a performing team.
Yeah, look, the roadmap's as long as you want it to be, because AI doesn't stop.
Yeah.
I have a season by season roadmap and what we want
I
to do.
get. I guess to make it a better question,
Yeah.
like by by how long is it going to take you to create a real significant edge through AI?
It'll take people 12 to 18 months, I think, to be able to do it. Because it's not just about building the AI, it's then the translation into the football. So if you're looking at a performance part, it takes a while, because you're not just building the models. You then got to translate that for coaches, management. You then got to translate that down to the players. And you then have to see the results and correlate them between the AI and the performance. So it's not
Yeah.
quick, it's not this light switch where you say, yeah, now, I flick the light switch and like, boom, you're the world's smartest team. Because if it was that easy, everyone would do it. It takes in my view, it takes a good 12 to 18 months to be able to get the foundations in place, the data in place, start doing the translation to the football side, start seeing the results. And it won't just be a full impact of the AI doing it. This is one trap that people fall into. They think the AI is the answer to everything. It's not. It's a component of success. It's still down to the management culture, the manager picking the right guys, the players doing the right thing. And even in this is football, right? The bounce is going the right way for you. You can miss out on the playoffs by a goal difference. It's a real game of fine margins. I don't think any AI person is going to come out and say, yeah, I'm purely responsible for us winning, because I will never come out and say that. If I can contribute to the winning here, that's great. But it's still down to the human. So the kind of this human-centric approach is still 11 guys on the pitch playing football, managed by a manager. They still got to do the job. We can arm them with as much data as possible. We can give them all the tools, everything that they need to be successful. But there's still this human element. We're still playing football with humans. We're still, playing to conditions. We're still doing things as a human. So we'll always contribute. I say the more we can contribute. And we've seen success stories, guys like Lincoln who have used set pieces, AI and set pieces. They showed a competitive edge. But that's a 2 to 3 season evolution for them. And guys behind the scenes, Brentford and Brighton weren't successes overnight. It took a while for them to implement their strategies, their technologies into a club and prove that it worked.
Yep, yep. Makes me think of that famous movie where it's an inch by inch. It's a matter of AI will be an extra tool, just like uh, 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 food data, like
Yeah,
all those marginal wins, like are just additional components that keep layering on top of everything else,
absolutely.
and get a more and more of a detail game, where there's always an element of luck and uncertainty, but where you leave that out of the equation as much as possible.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that will when we look at the recruitment side, it can be a bit more prescriptive and data led, and you can try and be more data driven there and see
yeah,
success. But when you're on the pitch,
yeah,
you're playing against 11 other guys. It's a game
yeah,
of inches, and I think it's like a marginal gains as they call it in the US. Like if we can find a 1% chance of winning
yeah,
because the AI models told us something, then that's great.
yeah.
But it's still be down to the human side and making sure that they get the win at the end of the day.
Yeah, and us on the business side, I guess, is making more and more revenue from the fans in a way that is not intrusive and that the fans don't dislike, but that they actually find useful. Because at the end of the day, it's the more revenue and the more certainty on your club finances, the more security it actually brings for the on-pitch performance as well. So I guess it's all a big mix of things where AI is a bit, and but it's super insightful to hear a little bit how you're going about it. And it's not a one direction. It's hey, doing a little bit of everything, because there's all the different like needs that are to be tackled. Isn't just a, oh, I take a horizontal tech stack approach like Gemini, or a product led approach on the vertical side of things. It is a mix of everything that will be the right recipe. Yeah. If you were to give, and to wrap this session up, because we're almost at time already, um, if you were to give one advice to anybody looking into AI inside a club that would be meaningless enough that you would be able to recommend it to everyone, would it be? And what does success look like on your AI implementation 3 years from now? Like, if I was to sum it up from our conversation, I would say have an impact on the 27-28 season, where there are points that are somehow attributed to the AI deployment that you have applied to the club. But yeah, what's one advice, and what does success look like in your strategy 3 years from now?
One advice about coming into football with AI: make it impactful. So and be human centric. That is my approach. So I think people try to be technology driven into football, which is the wrong approach. You need to be human centric, data fueled. You need to understand this is human beings that playing football managed by a human. You can try and replace everything with data, and I guarantee you it does not translate. You need to be able to use this as a competitive advantage, but understand that these guys understand football really, really well. And that, it's not a case of like any other industry. You can't just come in and try and be totally data driven and override everything. These guys have made careers on being really good football people, really good managers, really good coaches. If you try and shoehorn technology onto them from day one, it will not be appreciated, and it doesn't translate. It's very much a case of how can you complement them with data, with information, rather than kill them by data.
I was saying, what does success look like 3 years from now in terms of your AI deployment? Like, where do you like to have had impact on reading as a club 3 years from now, your AI deployment?
From 3 years from now, I would like to be seeing other teams doing the same model that we did, so we'd be seen as success in the blueprint. We know everyone's doing it. We know everyone's going to go down the data-driven route. We want to be seen as that blueprint team, that people have looked at the model that we've taken, our approach, and that when everyone talks like Brentford and Brighton as like the data-driven generation, the AI, people will say Reading are that AI-driven team, because that will show that we've been successful in what we're doing. So if we're seen as the blueprint for other people doing this, we know we've pioneered it, and that we've got the results that we wanted.
Nice, nice, interesting. In the same way, Wrexham is for marketing, you want to be uh, for AI. Interesting. Uh, Stuart, thanks a lot. Super insightful. We've had obviously plenty of conversations around this topic, but I'm glad that we were able to share it on this recording today.
No, thank you for having me.
Terrific. Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and see you soon on the next episode of Future of Fandom.
Thanks for listening to Future of Fandom. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow LiveLike on LinkedIn for more conversations with the people shaping what's next in the world of sports and media. Until next time, keep building for fans, not just users.